Welcome to the Murali End. My name is Mark Machado. I'm joined by Estelle Varzi-Devon and Nicholas Brooks. Estelle, if you don't know, Sri Lanka's #1 journalist across not just sport or cricket, but everything. And Nick Brooks is Sri Lanka's #1 historian, particularly around cricket historian. We've been watching the first day of the second test. And we are Murali End. If you haven't come across us before, we talk about Sri Lankan cricket basically all the time. We're across every single platform. So hit that like, hit the subscribe, hit that follow, send us your comments. Sri Lanka played or started the second test against Bangladesh today, SSC. Estelle, I'll come to you first because we didn't get you on for the first test, but there was a couple of changes. Both forced from the last test, because obviously Angelo has retired. I would like to see, just before we get into it, the number 69 retired from Sri Lankan cricket as well.
Not retired from Sri Lanka cricket.
Sorry. Yeah, he's not. He's still available for white ball selection, which we're all backing him to get there, right? Sorry. Angelo's retired from Test cricket. Milan Ratnaika has got an injury in tribute to Angelo. So there was 2 forced changes. What did you make of the changes? And what did you make of the kind of 11 going into it? And were you expecting any more changes? Because on the episode a couple of days ago, me and Dom speculated that they might change the spinners up a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't expect changes in the bowling lineup apart from that one inclusion for Milan Ratnaika, just because I don't think they would be hasty in leaving someone like Prabhat Jayasuriya out after the kind of start he had to his career, right? And Tarindu, I personally think this is not his format. Like, he should have been playing white ball cricket before he played Test cricket. But despite that, I feel like he played reasonably well, right, in the first game. So there was no way that they would leave him out either. So it was a matter of, I think, balancing things out, whether they wanted someone kind of like for like with Milan who could bat a bit. And obviously, none of the other bowlers can do that unless they were going to include Villalage, right? So it's interesting, actually, because Sonal Dinusha can bat, but is also a left-arm spinner. We know Dunit can bat and is probably capable of even slotting in that middle order. The one thing I feel is like, yeah, Dinusha's had a good run in domestic cricket. He's played well in A-team tours, but you have to feel for guys like Pasidhu Suryabandara, right? And Pawan Ratnaika. I mean, they've made so much of runs. Pasidhu in particular has been prolific over the last couple of years, and it felt like, you wait and wait and wait because there are no vacancies in the side, because you've got all these senior players and you don't have that many test matches in the calendar for Sri Lanka. And then when the opening finally comes, Sri Lanka decide to go with an all-round option. So I would think it was probably disappointing for that pair, because it would have been exciting to see. I think Pawan is probably a bit more of, a go-getter, fast-scoring batter, and someone who would have been exciting to see in the kind of pitches Sri Lanka have been producing, right? Like flat tracks, to see him come in later on in the innings. Pasidhu more of a kind of guy who will work his way through an inning. So, I mean, it's sad for them, but at the same time, I thought Sonal was really good with the ball, right? Today, he bowled really well. I thought he didn't show that many nerves, or that, he hasn't been part of international cricket in the past. He seemed to fit right in. So, I mean, it might prove to be a good choice by Sri Lanka, because if you look at the first test, we struggled to pick up wickets, right? I mean, there was no penetration from the bowlers. And I also was happy to see Vishwa, actually. I like that Sri Lanka have gone with the 2 quicks once again. I think that might be something that Dhananjay Silva has a hand in, because he's always spoken about being a bit more aggressive in that front. And you've got those options, right? You've got 3 frontline spinners, and you've got Dhananjay as well, who picked up a wicket off his first delivery today. So I think the picks were expected. Just a bit disappointed for that batting pair, because I mean, they would have been hoping that this was their opportunity.
Sorry about that phone call. That was Angelo just sending me a message about saying thanks for bigging him up for a selection and he suggested about retiring his shirt. That's cool, Angelo. Nick, what did you make of the debut debutant today.
I was super, super impressed with Sonal Danusha, man. Echo what Esti said, that I thought it would be a toss-up between Pasindu and Pavan. I didn't particularly understand why they were going with Sonal Danusha, but I thought he bowled with beautiful, beautiful control. Hardly bowled a bad ball all day long. I think the wickets were kind of a consequence of tying batters down, especially the second one where he got Mushfiqur to play a rash shot. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him bat. If he is capable of batting in the top 7, as we've discussed before, we never quite know what a 40 average in first-class cricket means when it translates to Test cricket. But if he can bat in the top 7 or even bat at 8, and if this spell that he bowled today is characteristic of what he can offer long-term, I think he's going to be a really exciting prospect for Sri Lanka. And he looks to me like he could be a really good second spinner. He bowls a bit quicker than Prabha. He's on the money. That slider, which comes straight into the right-hander, looks like it's going to be really effective. And I mean, I was kind of left scratching my head today as to whether you need all 3 of Prabha, Tharindu, and Sonal, or whether there's a better way for Sri Lanka moving forward to use their resources.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's important to point out that at this point, this 11 that's on the pitch, there is 5 people who can spin the ball, right? And you're a bit like, what under what circumstance, maybe outside of, like, if you're not playing at goal, would you ever need that many players who can do that? I wonder if Pasindu missed out potentially because of Milan's injury, and they thought they might need that extra bowling option just to get through the wickets, because it looks like to me that DDS and Kamindu, even though I just kind of said that there is 5 of them, they don't really look keen to bowl those two to bowl too many overs, right? So they might have thought that's what they needed to go for the all-rounder. I don't know what the thinking is, obviously, because no one from SLC does actually call me. The other thing when we're discussing where how players get selected and when they make their debuts, I think I was most impressed with Sonal today. I just felt he had the right mentality from the get-go, right? When we look at your 2 players, I mean, Larry Udana had an absolutely horrendous day in the field, and contrast his kind of contribution to today to Sonal, and you're like, right, Udana's there to score runs at the top of the order, but he's got to, fielding is as important as batting and bowling, right? And we've seen over the last few years, we've seen when our fielding's been bad, it takes games away from Sri Lanka, and we're pure vibes team in some regards, right? So when games start to drift away, they really start to drift away, right? Bad fielding hits us like an iceberg. You see today, Sonal comes on, he makes his debut, and every way in which he can try and do well for the team, he's doing it. That's a mentality thing. He's not overruled by the situation. I'm sure the selectors would have thought about that. That would have almost been the main consideration. We talk a lot about how there's a lot of cricketers in Sri Lanka who play first-class cricket, who potentially have the skill to go on and play, to get runs, to get wickets on an international level. But do they have the mentality, not just to get the shirt, but to perform in the shirt? And I thought today, Sonal, day 1 of his international career, and he's absolutely smashed it, which I don't know. Maybe the other players vying for debuts just haven't got as good a mentality as he's managed to demonstrate. I don't know if either of you two have any kind of insight into that at all.
I did think he looked very mature and very confident for a guy making his debut. My sense is that they wanted the extra bit of bowling, maybe because Prabha hadn't gone that well in Gaul.
Yep.
And it seems to me like they didn't want to, or they would want to stick with Tharindu because they want a frontline off spinner, right? That's always been the format that the team has played in recent years. And I guess maybe the thought is that Sonal has slightly more batting than Will Alagay at this stage, that he's a better fit at 6 or 7, whereas Weller's maybe more of an 8 still.
Yeah, and also interesting, I think, to also look at the fact that are Sri Lanka looking at bowlers who can bat? because we've had this problem with the tail, right? And you have to say Milan Ratnayaka's pick is based on the fact that he can bat, and you are expecting him to get you 20-30 runs at number 8. Tharindu Ratnayaka can bat quite well, actually, can use the long handle quite well. Sonal Dinusha is a better than both of them. So that's also, I think, a consideration they are making now, particularly because Sri Lanka have had those kind of collapses at the end, which I'm not sure. Look, I'm not sure 100% agree with. I think if you're going 4 bowlers or 5 bowlers, maybe you have one guy who can bat a bit, but you've got to pick the best bowlers, right? So I don't know if that's like really becoming a factor, because you would think Vishwa is probably a better option than Milan Ratnayaka as a quick bowler, but Milan gets the nod because he's a better batter. I wonder if someone like Akila Dhananjay would have been considered ahead of Tarindu if the batting was not a consideration. So that, I think, is another thing that may be factoring in when they're making this playing 11, because of the past issues where you've had like the last 3 or 4 being walking wickets.
Estelle, you got to remember, Akila Dhananjaya, it doesn't matter who the opposition is or what the format is, he is always being considered. He's always being considered. It's interesting you bring him up, because I do think we need to mention the fact that they called up Vishwa and Dunath into this squad a couple of days ago. Ordinarily, almost any other professional sports team in the world, regardless of the discipline, when a player gets called up into the squad, unless they're kind of youth player and they're coming in because they're worried about potential injuries, but when someone like Dunath Wallalage, who's played Test cricket before, is a regular in all the other squads, gets called up, you kind of expect him to play. But yet again, Sri Lanka have done this, which is why I keep saying I cannot predict what SLC might do, where they've called a player up and they've not put him in the squad. So you're just like, what is this about? If they wanted just to hang about and be a net bowler, then surely he would have just done that anyway, because he's under central contract. Right. Nick, can you shed some sort of insight? Have you got any thoughts on why they keep doing this?
All I can say is we might as well stop bothering doing previews, because I think all 4 of us said that it was going to be a toss-up between Pavan and Pasindu for that new middle order slot. I think all of us said that we thought Akila was going to play over Tharindu Ratnayaka. And then also you've got this situation where Oshada Fernando played in the Australia series, right? When Patham was injured. And then come this series with Dimuth's retirement, and Udara is ahead of Oshada in the pecking order. I don't know what's changed in the 3 months since to make SLC or the selectors change their tune. But yeah, it's really hard to predict what this team is going to do, but it just adds a little bit more spice and excitement for us, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Estelle, Natalie Pereira has sent this in. We should improve our fielding. Last year, our fielding was better, especially in Test cricket. I remember a few weeks ago, our friend of the show, Rex Clementine, put a long post out on social media talking about how Sri Lanka have improved their fielding. This series, SD, I don't know, maybe Upal Chandra hasn't been doing the same drills, or they've taken their foot off the gas or whatever, but the fielding has not been good today. There was a lot of drop catches. The fielding wasn't good in goal either. What is going on here?
Yeah, it's a weird thing, isn't it? I don't know if, like, you look across the board in international cricket, whether that's a universal problem now. We saw India struggle in the field yesterday. How many catches did Jaiswal drop, right? Like, I don't know what's going on, because it definitely, like, they're spending a lot of time on fielding drills and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't seem to be working consistently. I mean, you'll have one day where they're brilliant in the field, and today Sri Lanka took some good catches, right? Dhananjay De Silva took a really good catch at slip, but at the same time, then you have the other days where things just don't go your way. And like you said, in Gaul, the same thing happened. And in Gaul, Sri Lanka were made to pay, right? Like, they dropped catches and those batters went on to make really big scores. Today, they've been lucky that Bangladesh have kind of fallen apart still. I mean, a couple of wickets to go, but they've not been able to capitalize as such. So it's a strange thing, isn't it? Like, you'd expect like the fielding to only get better, but it feels like across the board we're seeing more and more of this kind of, and it's not even like half chances going down, right? It's like proper genuine opportunities.
So I think, Nick, I think the of the three disciplines, the one which there appears to be kind of no money in terms of, you know, the IPL don't spend big bucks on the best fielders yet, is fielding. And because of that, in the same way that sometimes you look at gym bros, you're like, bro, when is leg day? You kind of look at cricketers, you're like, when is catching day? When is fielding day? Like, you'll need to spend as much time fielding or practicing your fielding as you do batting, right?
Yeah, fielding is cricket's version of leg day. Yeah, I don't know whether this team isn't focusing on it as much as they should, because there were a couple of ugly drops today, right? That Lahiri Udara one out at Cow Corner was pretty regulation. And I mean, you give him some sympathy because he's a wicket keeper. He was doing some funny stuff at short leg as well, not looking like he really wanted to be there. So whether that's a consideration moving forward we'll have to see. Prabhas one wasn't great either. I don't think it was his catch to go for. It was possibly influenced by the fact, I think Pawan Ratnayake was sub-fielding at mid-on. And so maybe he's not as confident, you know, newly into the setup to shout and say, that's my catch. But Prabha never looked like taking it. And it was one of those where you're running behind the ball and doing this, and it was kind of ugly. I also, a slightly separate point, I thought Dhananjaya captained well for the spinners today. And it was really nice to see, you know, back to kind of the Murali days of 4 men around the bat. They're everywhere prowling. But I thought that at times for long stretches, especially when Vishwa was bowling and getting good seam movement, one slip felt really light. And I'm not personally a fan of having one slip fielder standing at kind of like 2.5 slip, trying to cover all your options. And I thought that today was a day where there could have been a first and a second slip rather than having Kamindu trying to cover 3 positions.
If you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, firstly, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the follow, whatever you need to do. Please come along with us. And secondly, if you've got any thoughts, comments, questions, send them in, just like Yuvshant has done. And hello, I'll go to hello's comment first. Pasindu can replace Kusal Mendis. I don't think anyone's considering dropping Kusal Mendis at the moment. The guy's just had a go at the IPL. He's probably in the form of his life. You know, I know he's made a couple of mistakes, or it feels like he's made mistakes behind the wickets, but I don't think he's at risk of being dropped anytime soon, is he? Yuvshant's made an interesting point. Yeah, India lost to England because of their tail not making runs. I think that's. I don't think that is right. If India's tail had, you know, obviously we're not talking about that test, but if India's tail had lost a little bit longer, then England would have run out of time to get the runs, right? So they definitely stopped India getting a kind of positive result there. And
yeah,
also,
I think he makes that point based on what I was saying, right, about the selections. I think that's a fair point to make, right? Like in today's cricket, you need to be able to hold the bat. Like, you can't be a Nuwan Pradeep anymore, right? Like, you need to be able to at least stick around 10-15 balls. But at the same time, your batters are in the team to make the runs, right? So the entire blame, or the majority of the responsibility, 99% of it, should go to the batter. So if they are not making the runs, then you can't expect your 9, 10, 11 to be coming in and making 50-60 runs, right? Because that's not their primary job in the team. I understand that you need to be able to stick around and stuff, but I think there we get a bit carried away with, you know, losing the last couple of wickets quickly, where actually the top order and the middle order should be making more runs.
I wonder if it goes back to the leg day kind of analogy, right? Where actually, even though you're a bowler, you should also try and figure out how to kind of hang about a little bit with the batting. Whenever we see Patharana or Deekshana post on Instagram, I was going to say LinkedIn, post on Instagram about, you know, being in the nets and learning to hit hard, then we all get quite excited about that. But actually, it'd be quite good for, you know, for some of our low order test players to just learn how to just kind of sit out some overs and just kind of take time and frustrate people. Yuvshant should come up with 8. I think that's about the India test, which we don't need to talk about that. There's loads of other shows talking about that. They also keep flashing up that stat about how few runs Sri Lanka's tail made in the last World Test Championship, right? And you kind of think, well, maybe if they were able to make kind of 20 or 30 runs more per innings, then we might have got ourselves closer to the final. Overall, guys, because I think we should probably kind of wrap this up now. It's been a good day for Sri Lanka today, hasn't it? They just need to kind of tomorrow morning get those wickets and don't lose. Get the Bangladesh team all out, and then don't lose wickets early and build a score. And we've got this, right, guys. It's as easy as that, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, I thought it was a really promising day and a day where all the bowlers looked good, right? I think the thinking was that this pitch should flatten out a bit tomorrow if there isn't too much rain and it gets kind of a nice little sunbake. So good batting conditions tomorrow. Get these last 2 wickets for, I don't know, another 20 runs. And then you look to put a big first innings lead on the board and the hard work is done. I think Sri Lanka have got themselves into a great position to win this test.
Amazing. SD, anything to add before we wrap this up? Or
No, I thought it's a really good day for Sri Lanka as well, particularly because they lost the toss, right? So it did look early on that Bangladesh would really stick around and put some runs on the board, but good bowling all around. The only concern, I guess, is that Prabhat hasn't gotten wickets again, right? And for sure, that will be working on their minds because he's the guy who they want to be, leading that attack. So that'll be the only concern, I think, for Sri Lanka.
He did get a couple to rag though, Prabha, didn't he? He got a couple to turn and bounce. So hopefully he'll come into it in the second innings. Keep saying that.
We've spoken extensively about Prabhat's lack of wickets last week or so, SD, when you've not been with us. One of the kind of theories we've had is the pitch isn't kind of working in his favour, which he kind of can't control. My kind of bigger fear is though, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is do you think he might have just been a little bit sussed out by opposition batters?
It's possible. I think that Australia series is one that you have to look at. The comparison between the Australian bowlers versus the Sri Lankans. I think the pitches that Sri Lanka are preparing right now are not conducive to his slow bowling. You need to be quicker. And that's what they showed, right? In that series, the ability to go from 70 to 90 to 100 meant that they can adjust if it's a pitch that you need to bowl fast or adjust if you need to bowl slow. But if you can only bowl slow, then that's a problem, which is why I think someone like Dunit, it could be an option in Test cricket. Someone like Mahesh Theekshana could be an option in Test cricket now because of the types of pitches that we're seeing produced in Galle and SSC. I don't know if that's intentional, where they're trying to make it as slow as possible because they think Bangladesh also have really good spinners. But I think that is a factor in why Prabhat has not been successful, because he's not been able to match the pace of the other spinners.
Interesting. Right, guys, I'll just leave one more comment up because I don't think Chamit's ever commented before. Outside pattern, Kamindu and Chandy, rest of our batters are not in consistent form. Due to this, we have to go with part-time batters, so 7 batters with less bowling options. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that, whether we need more batting.
No, I think we just need. It would be nice to see DDS in the runs. Be nice to see Lahira Udara get some runs, I think. And if Sonal Anusha can chip in during this test, I think the top 7's in decent shape, right? It feels like it wasn't that long ago that Kusal was doing really well in the New Zealand series.
Yeah. Guys, let's wrap that up for today then. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll put this out as a podcast imminently. I'm going to go and meet Nick for lunch now. And I have no idea what Estelle's up to for the rest of the evening. But we will be back tomorrow about the same time, just after the close of play. Hit your follow, hit the subscribe. Tell all your friends about the Murali End. See you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.